Level 1. Dock Ghost. You exist at the edge of a sprawling port in the 1700s, where ships arrive like floating cities and leave like they were never there at all. Maritime trade is the backbone of entire empires here. Everything from sugar to silver to timber moves through this water. You don't belong to any of it. You sleep where timber meets salt water, under loading platforms that groan with every tide shift, counting crates you are never meant to touch twice. Your presence is tolerated only because it is not recorded. Dock workers move through your space without acknowledging it. Guards only register you when something goes missing. You learn the invisible mechanics of survival: patrol timing, blind inspection gaps, which cargo stacks are ignored, which voices signal danger before words form. The sea is constant, but freedom is abstract, always somewhere beyond the horizon in a direction you are not allowed to take. Level 2. Rope Runner. You are no longer invisible, just barely absorbed into the system. Ports like this depend on informal labor networks to keep official trade moving on schedule. Someone older decides you are useful, fast, quiet, replaceable enough to move between gaps in the system. You run lines between ships and shore, carry sealed instructions, deliver names you're told never to repeat. The port stops being noise and becomes structure you can partially read. You recognize which captains are under naval scrutiny, which docks are clean only on inspection days, which vessels move like they already belong to someone else. Small coins appear in your hand without formal exchange. People stop looking through you and start looking past you, trying to assign you a future role in something larger. You still own nothing, not cargo, not time, not consequence, but you are now part of the machinery that keeps maritime commerce flowing. Level 3. Hold Sailor. You step onto a ship that does not ask what you are, only what function you can serve. Merchant and naval vessels in this era operate as sealed hierarchies where survival depends on discipline and coordination. The deck becomes your entire world, bounded by rigging above and deep water below. Sleep comes in fragments between labor cycles that reshape your body into repetition. Orders arrive without explanation because explanation is not part of maritime survival. You learn the structure of life aboard: who eats first, who speaks least, who disappears into punishment when storms or discipline demand it. The ocean stops feeling distant. It presses against the hull like a constant external force that governs every decision. Above deck, officers navigate routes that already assume risk is normal. Below deck, you realize movement itself is the closest thing to stability you will ever have. Level 4. Prize Crew. It happens in a way that feels procedural rather than dramatic. In the 1700s, ships were frequently taken and reassigned during conflict, especially in contested waters where naval power shifted constantly. One moment you are part of a crew, the next you are operating under a different flag without leaving the vessel. Commands change instantly, authority is replaced, and your role is redefined without consent or pause. You are still on the same wood, under the same sky, but the system governing your existence has been overwritten mid-motion. The sea does not react to this transition. It treats it as routine, another adjustment in a world built on unstable control. Level 5. Boarding Raider. You are no longer just maintaining a ship, you are part of taking others. Boarding actions are structured engagements designed to overwhelm a vessel through speed, coordination, and pressure at key points. Cannon fire softens resistance before crews cross decks in tightly timed waves. You learn how quickly order collapses when physical control shifts from one side to another. Maritime conflict in this period was often economic as much as military, with captured cargo and ships becoming direct wealth. You are no longer anonymous in outcomes. Ships begin to carry memory of what happens when your side arrives, even if names do not survive. Every victory produces more opportunity and more exposure at the same time. The sea remains indifferent, treating each engagement as part of a larger, continuous system of movement and loss. Level 6. Ship Captain. You now command a vessel that operates as an extension of your decisions. Ports begin adjusting to your arrival patterns, anticipating risk based on your history rather than just weather or schedule. Naval and merchant systems in this era relied heavily on predictable routes, which makes deviation a form of power. Authority is no longer questioned openly. It is calculated against and adapted to. Your crew follows because alternatives are less survivable, not because loyalty is simple. Your quarters become a space filled with decisions that never fully end, only accumulate. You are no longer part of the ship's structure. You are the point it organizes itself around. Sleep is fragmented by imagined failures, delayed reports, and the constant math of what could go wrong at sea. Level 7. Fleet Commander. You are now coordinating multiple ships moving as a loose network across trade routes and contested waters. Communication is delayed and incomplete, relying on signals, couriers, and prearranged patterns rather than real-time control. The ocean becomes partially mapped. Shipping lanes, patrol zones, and risk corridors that shift depending on recent encounters. Maritime trade at this scale depends on synchronization across distance rather than direct oversight. Captains begin to use your name as shorthand for instruction rather than identity. You issue orders that travel farther than you ever physically will. The larger the system grows, the more reality arrives to you filtered through interpretation and delay. You are no longer sailing the world. You are managing its movement from within it. Level 8. Harbor Authority. You control influence over a port that functions as a critical node in maritime trade networks. Ports like this determine the flow of goods, ships, and information between empires. Trade routes bend around your decisions. Inspection timing, docking priority, cargo clearance. The harbor is no longer just geography, it is infrastructure shaped by enforcement and coordination. Negotiations happen in rooms where your absence is no longer viable. You are surrounded by advisors, but outcomes still resolve through your judgment. Wealth here is not static. It is continuous flow passing through systems you regulate. Every adjustment ripples further than you can directly observe, affecting supply chains and naval movement beyond the harbor itself. Level 9. Sea Empire. You are no longer operating within ships or ports. You are embedded in the broader structure that governs maritime movement. Empires in this era depended on sea routes for survival, making control of flow more important than control of territory. Your influence extends across trade systems, naval decisions, and merchant behavior without requiring direct presence. You interact more with networks than with vessels. Decisions are made in abstraction, based on information already delayed by distance and intermediaries. Your identity becomes distributed across systems rather than tied to action. The ocean that once tested you now reflects your position within a much larger mechanism of global movement. Level 10. Ocean Legacy. You are old enough that your name exists more as reference than presence. Maritime systems you helped shape continue operating through established routes, procedures, and inherited patterns. The 1700s world of fragmented ports and contested seas has become a structured network of global trade. You can still trace where your decisions once altered routes or outcomes, but they no longer require you to function. The sea remains unchanged, constant, indifferent, governing everything through motion rather than memory. What began at the edge of a dock becomes part of a system that outlives its original actors. And in the quiet distance between intention and history, you understand that you did not simply move through the ocean, you became part of how it moves.